Cannabis sativa is one of Earth's oldest cultivated plants and is used today by millions of people all over the world. Cannabis is a species of the Cannabaceae family, which is also home to Humulus lupulus, referring to hops. Historically speaking, the cannabis plant has been mostly used for its hemp fibers, which are extremely useful in making textiles. However, over time, humans have developed more uses for the plant. Its edible seeds have also been the focus of cultivation, from which humans are able to make oils in various useful forms. Only in the past few centuries have people cultivated the plant for its often colorful and strong-smelling flowery buds with smoking them in mind. Throughout the years, humans have referred to the plant and certain parts of the plant as a multitude of things, including hemp, hashish, weed, ganja, bang, dope, reefer, and Mary Jane, to list just a few of the names that exist. This video will focus on cannabis grown for its durable fibers, known as hemp, as well as plants that have been domesticated for their seeds and/or their flowers, which are recognized for their psychoactive properties and most commonly known in the United States as marijuana. Generally speaking, members of the Cannabaceae family are angiosperms that exist as vines, herbs, shrubs, or trees. The Cannabis sativa species specifically grows as an herb and is dioecious, meaning the males and females exist as separate plants rather than collectively on the same plant. This is especially important to keep in mind because male and female cannabis plants each have their own specific uses. Cannabis is a eudicot, meaning the young plant has two cotyledons that store nutrients, unlike monocots. Additionally, this means that the veins in the leaves are branched rather than parallel, and implies that the floral parts exist in multiples of 4 or 5. Cannabis has palmate compound leaves, meaning that there are many leaflets that extend from one common point. These leaves also have serrated margins, which give them a jagged, almost sharp appearance. Throughout history and to this day, cannabis leaves remain the symbol of the plant due to the fact that they are extremely recognizable. The plants also contain stipules that appear in the internodes, and the fruit of the plant is considered an achene. Because cannabis is dioecious, reproduction occurs via wind pollination. After this happens, the female plant's flowers will produce seeds. However, female plants that do not get pollinated will be considered sinsemilla, which means without seeds. Sinsemilla females will produce buds that contain much higher proportions of psychoactive components. Seeds from cannabis plants can be dispersed by living things such as birds and mammals, and also by things like wind and water. This is to say that the cannabis sativa plant is capable of both biotic and abiotic seed dispersal. Cannabis sativa can be cultivated in many different ways, and has been for thousands of years. There are 3 main cultivar groups of cannabis, each specific to a certain part of the plant and bred for a specific purpose. The first group is grown for hemp. These plants are cultivated for their fibers and are characterized by long stems and few branches. Since hemp fibers are obtained from the stems, longer stems equate to a higher yield of fibers and thus more output. These fibers are incredibly strong for their width and are immensely useful in creating things like ropes, clothing, sails, and even paper. Historically speaking, this is the single most important cultivar of the cannabis plant. In hemp production, usually tall, sturdy male plants are used because they grow at a rapid rate and provide longer fibers. Throughout history, humans often bred ideal hemp plants with other tall male plants, assuring the future plants would be just as strong, if not stronger. The second cultivar group is grown for the plant's seeds, which can be eaten raw by humans or used for birdseed. They can also be used to obtain cannabis or hemp oil. This oil is especially useful for cooking or for creating paints and varnishes, and is also said to be renowned for its skin moisturizing properties. The third group is grown for its flowers, which are the part of the plant that contain the highest concentration of the most prominent psychoactive constituent found in the plant, tetrahydrocannabinol, commonly referred to as THC. Contrary to popular belief, THC is just one of more than 60 active ingredients in cannabis. However, it is present in the highest concentration. THC stimulates brain cells to release dopamine, which is the reason that people feel a sense of euphoria after smoking or ingesting the buds. Other positive feelings from this compound include elation, relaxation, pain relief, and reduced nausea. This can be incredibly helpful for cancer patients who experience nausea from chemotherapy. Sometimes people feel negative effects from the plant as well, like anxiety, irritability, and issues with short-term memory recall. All over the surface of the plant, small, crystal-like resin can be seen. These crystals are called trichomes and are glands that were originally developed to protect the plant against predators and the elements. These trichomes ooze oils and cannabinoids like THC. This is why many people look to grow or find buds that appear very crystally, because they tend to have much higher concentrations of the psychoactive THC, and thus its effects are magnified. This third cultivar group has become much more of a focus in the past century, especially since THC was isolated in 1965 as the most psychoactive component of the plant. With the recreational use of the plant's flowering buds increasing drastically, many new methods of growing and harvesting have emerged in order to up the levels of THC found in the flowers. Although we are still learning about the exact effects cannabis has on the brain, the fact that certain parts of the plant have higher psychoactive components than others has historically been understood. Just as humans bred strong and tall male plants with similar ones to produce better hemp, they also bred bushier female plants that they recognize as being more psychoactive with like plants. Cannabis is native to Central Asia and has since been spread mostly by humans. It is believed that the Chinese people were the first to have used the plant between 8 and 12,000 years ago, and they thought of it so highly that they referred to China as the land of mulberry and hemp. Cannabis in China was preliminarily used for textiles, and it wasn't until around 4000 BC that it was reportedly used medicinally as an anesthetic during surgery. From China, humans brought cannabis to the Middle East and India around 2000 BC, and it eventually spread westward. By 1200 AD, it had reached most of Europe, and by 1400 AD, it had reached almost all of Europe, Asia, and Africa. The Spanish conquistadors brought cannabis with them to the Americas in the mid-16th century, as did the English upon their settling in Jamestown. The plant was so important that shortly after Jamestown was settled, King James I ordered settlers to engage in widespread farming of hemp. This played a large part as to why people commonly say things like, "Did you know George Washington grew pot in his garden?" While we cannot disprove this, it is much more likely that the first president of the United States was growing the plant for its hemp fibers. In fact, smoking the plant is a relatively new concept, and the first documentation of smoking cannabis wasn't until a few centuries ago. One of the first professional groups dedicated to the exploration of drug-induced experiences was called the Club d'Hachachine and existed in Paris in the mid-1800s. Some of its more notable members included Alexandre Dumas and Victor Hugo, the writers of some of the most important literary works of the time, like The Three Musketeers, The Count of Monte Cristo, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Les Miserables. The idea that cannabis is an evil plant is also relatively new when speaking in terms of its history. Shortly after the end to alcohol prohibition in the early 1930s, the recently created Federal Bureau of Narcotics classified cannabis as a narcotic and put it in the same category as drugs like morphine, cocaine, and heroin. The U.S. government's war against marijuana continued through the late 1900s with Nixon's war on drugs. Only in the past 20 years or so has significant progress been made in allowing citizens to choose whether they should legally be able to grow and use the plant. In 1996, California became the first state to vote for medicinal cannabis use, and today there are 23 states that allow the use of medical cannabis in addition to Washington, D.C. While many other states have decriminalized the drug, Washington State and Colorado exist as the only two places in the U.S. where recreational use of the drug is entirely legal to those over the age of 21. As of 2012, just under half of Americans said they had tried marijuana, and 70% of Americans believe that alcohol is more harmful to a person's health than marijuana, according to a February 2014 Pew Research study. Given the long history of cannabis and its many uses, it will be very interesting to see how our generation shapes the future of cannabis within and outside of the United States.